Good morning. I'm Ruth Hassell Thompson, former state senator representing Westchester and the Bronx. After 30 years of being in government and public service, I retired in December of last year, 2023. In anticipation of that, last May, I started a consulting firm, and it's called Third Act, which is where I am in my life in that third act. We focus on three areas: development, which is property development, which I know a little bit about, education, and policy. Those are the three areas of consultancy. As I said earlier during the presentation, I started my career as a pediatric nurse and then went on to run one of the first licensed infant programs outside of New York City. It was a truly different learning curve going from the sick child to the well child. But in both instances, it gave me a lot of insight into child-parent relationships. But because my nursing career was so long ago, I realized how much and how significantly healthcare has changed in the way we provide care to infants and children. And the NICU programs that are available now in many hospitals, I was not aware of until I just had a great-grandson who was born 7.5 weeks early and had to spend significant time there because he was only 2 pounds at birth. And he was, of course, prematurely born. He is now 15 pounds, 7 months old, and a thriving, laughing, gorgeous little boy who is the love of my life. But I feel blessed, not just because he's growing, he's healthy, he's maturing in every way. We're also blessed because we had access. His mom and dad had access to care and to the best care. He was born in Seattle, Washington Hospital, where they have one of the finest units for NICU. And I'd never heard of it, until then. But I am very grateful, number one, that it is available to him, but it is the kind of service that must be made available. And I know that many of the children that did not survive many years ago would have benefited so much by that kind of care were it available then. And it makes me very angry to know the statistics that Governor Patterson stated today, that we are still way behind some of the developing countries of the world in terms of the numbers of maternal infant births and deaths, and even one death is too high, particularly if it can be traced to poor and inadequate prenatal care given to mothers or her inability to access prenatal care. Programs like MISN are very, very critical because the fundamentals of what they're offering is not just an institution, but rather by nature it's nurturing. And this is something that communities, particularly those with high poverty rates and with disadvantaged communities, need the most. Because a part of what happens or fails to happen, parents don't seek care as often or as well as they should because of lack of money. And if you have to make choices, I know my grandmother used to put everybody else first, and the care that she should have or could have been receiving was negated because she had to make a decision. And sometimes you decide whether you're going to put food on the table or you're going to see a doctor. And without insurance, there are very few doctors or institutions that will give care. So it takes an MISN who does not concern itself with how much money you have, but rather what your needs are And these are the things I think that make a difference. And when you send that message, then people are much more subject to reach out and take advantage of those opportunities. I know when the Valverde Neighborhood Health Center, when I was in the Senate, we used to have something called member item money. And I bought a van for them, for the health center there, primarily to ensure that our elderly, as well as those moms without access to the bus and whatever, could be picked up to make sure they got to the services that they needed. So these are the kinds of things that MISN can do, and those are gaps that I think exist too often, particularly in rural areas where it's impossible to get around if you don't have a car, and near impossible if the bus only runs once an hour. So those are things that I think that make a big difference in terms of the ability of people to get care. Care can be available, but if you can't access it, it still does not do you any good. Off the top of my head it occurs to me that some of the pharmaceutical companies can be very, very supportive. They give a lot of samples and all kinds of stuff to doctors' offices to encourage them to use them and whatever. They should be supporting MISN in that same manner. And also donations and contributions to ensure if a vehicle is necessary, then purchase the vehicle. Your college institution here is already partnering, but we need more. Not just the educational side, but the nutritional side. And I'm working with a client now who is going to be doing hydroponic farming in this area. And this is one of the catchment areas that we will be looking at to ensure that the quality of food that's made available is first rate, and that that it's organic, and that it is accessible to the people who are in need.